Often we hear a lot about honor killings and we forget the spectrum and the continuum of violence that happens before that extreme. And that there's a lot of people who are dealing with that continuum of violence, and because it's not as sensationalized, they don't get the attention and the support and the access to the services that they need. In the East African community, we see a lot of honor-related violence and forced marriage being interlinked with each other, often as a corrective or a disciplinary behavior. And unfortunately, they're on the receiving end are often young women who are economically disadvantaged and are often relying on their families or their partners for support. We see a lot of young girls who are being put in these situations, especially with honor-related violence, which are not necessarily because they've done something, but because there's a perception that they've done something or that they've strayed and acted outside their family or their community's code of conduct. We do see it with older women as well, and we see a lot of pressure for young men and young boys to police their sisters, mothers, wives, and the pressure for them it also can happen with the threat of violence as well, is that if they don't participate in this policing, then they're seen as, not real men, or they get a lot of pressure from their community, sometimes from religious leaders, but primarily from a family or a council within a family that decides how these kind of punishments or corrective measures should be taken, and who does what in these situations. It's also very challenging for a lot of young women in our community to access services because they deal with a lot of racism, being African Black, and they deal with racism and discrimination against immigrants, and then they deal with Islamophobia as well if they're visibly Muslim, if they wear the hijab or any other kind of religious marker. And they feel that if they access services, that their family or their community will be unfairly judged, or that they will contribute to the racism and the Islamophobia that their communities face. So unfortunately, we see a lot of lack of access to services because people feel that, I'm going to bring shame to my whole community if this happens, or I don't think my family are bad people, and I don't want to put them in a situation where they're going to get into legal trouble, particularly because they feel that the system is designed to be disadvantaged against, people of color and, Muslim identifying people. Or they feel like, okay, this is going to mean I have to leave my family altogether, and I don't want to leave my family. So what we try to do is to really work in a way where we can say, you can make amends if that's what you want to do. We just want to make sure that you have a safety plan. We want to make sure that you're safe for now, and we're not going to make any assumptions about your family. We're not going to make any assumptions about what those structures of violence look like for you, and we're not going to make any assumptions about what you do want to in terms of a relationship with your family, but we just are here to make sure that you're safe immediately, and that any kind of relationship you're entering into is from free and informed consent, and that you are not in a situation where you feel that you're in danger of physical or verbal abuse or anything of the sort. We recently had a youth who was whose best friend had been her best friend for a very long time. And then that person, somebody had taken a compromising photograph of that young woman, and it had made its way around the community. So it ended up being a very precarious situation for both young women involved. The person who was in that compromising photograph, and then the other young woman who's her friend, because she was perceived to be associated with that person, and as a result to have shared moral values and to have strayed outside her family and community's code of conduct as well, or it's to stop her from doing it. So her family began putting a lot of pressure on her to get married. She had previously not been allowed to wear makeup or anything like that, so they were encouraging her to wear makeup and to meet people in very specific contexts. She felt that her family was pressuring her to settle for any kind of partner because that's all she can get now that her reputation is kind of damaged or on the line. She was fortunate enough to have family support from other family members who were able to financially help her, get out of that situation and gain some independence. She began, coming up with a safety plan for herself and also a 5-year plan for herself in her life and what she wanted to do, which is really, really great. This is something that we see, is that this doesn't have to be the end. This doesn't have to be, the thing that defines you and the thing that defines your relationship with your family. And now we can, talk about what kind of legal steps you can take. We can talk about a peace bond with your family, and we can talk about how you can repair that relationship if that's what you want, and how we can all talk collectively about our experiences of trauma and talk about consent. And it's generated a lot of really great conversation in the community and in her circles about what consent should look like when you're getting married.